left a police officer, 2 medical professionals, and the gunman dead. The victim's Dr. Tamara O'Neill, who argued with and was shot to death in the parking lot by her ex-fiancé, pharmacy resident Dana Less, and Chicago police officer Samuel Jimenez.
Who got up this morning, went to work, and wanted to protect the city of Chicago. He did just that, but he did so with his life.
Kevin Graham of the Fraternal Order of Police in Chicago. The gunman is also dead from a gunshot wound. Not clear yet whether it was his own or one of the responding officers. In suburban St. Louis, a gunman burst into a religious supply store, shot one woman to death, and
a sexual assault did occur inside the store. I don't know how many victims.
Sergeant Sean McGuire of the St. Louis County Police Department says that gunman is still on the loose. Now 79 people are known dead from the Northern California wildfire, with the discovery of 2 more sets of remains on Monday. And that's not the only suffering.
Tens of thousands of people are homeless in Paradise, California. It was already a pretty lean housing situation before the wildfire. Now Brad Alexander with the Governor's Office of Emergency Services says they're working with private groups, nonprofits, and FEMA, interviewing each individual family to find out what they need.
Go to your insurance company first and then immediately go to FEMA to register for disaster assistance. And as an individual, go to the Disaster Recovery Center as soon as you can.
In this fire alone, more than 12,000 homes were destroyed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. The number of people listed as unaccounted for from the fire has been reduced to about 700 people. This is Fox News.
Enjoy a world-class breakfast in historic Talafofo at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Serving as both a military dispensary, recreation, and rehab center for pilots after the war, Jeff's Pirates Cove offers a taste of local history while you start your day with a delicious omelet or steak and eggs. If you're on a budget, pick up one of Jeff's $8 breakfasts, all served up with endless coffee. For reservations and information, call 789-COVE. That's 789-2683. Start your day at Jeff's Pirates Cove. Open daily at 8 a.m. in historic Ipan, Talafofo.
Hapaday, I'm Rod Boss. As the new president and CEO of Docomo Pacific, I want to personally thank you for voting us Pika's best mobile, internet, and cable service provider for 3 years in a row. For friends and families serving in the armed forces, you voted us Best of the Pacific again this year. Thanks.
Ask your friends and family to come over and give our mobile network a try, and we'll give them 3 months free. We have select devices up to 50% off. Sign up today. You plus Docomo Pacific. Better together.
The White House releasing a new set of rules of decorum for White House news conferences.
Mr. President, that's enough.
From here on out, at all press conferences, the White House says journalists will only be allowed to ask one question, unless the president or whatever official taking questions allows them to ask a follow-up question. After that, the White House says the journalist must yield the floor, which includes physically surrendering the microphone to White House staff. No surprise, the White House Correspondents Association is already pushing back by saying, quote, for as long as there have been White House press conferences, White House reporters have asked follow-up questions. We fully expect this tradition will continue.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. Several Senate Democrats are asking a federal court to nullify the appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting attorney general. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal says because Whitaker was never subject to confirmation hearings.
U.S. senators have a right and a responsibility to scrutinize the top law enforcement official of the United States when he or she is installed. And the president's action here deprives U.S. senators of that right.
The White House insists the appointment, which is temporary, is legal. Authorities are trying to learn what sickened dozens of students at a South Florida high school.
26 students and an adult staff member at Cardinal Gibbons Catholic High School in Fort Lauderdale were rushed to the hospital Monday in a possible exposure to an unknown substance. Fire officials say some students experienced seizures, others had nosebleeds or shortness of breath, and some passed out. A hazmat crew swept the campus, checked for gas leaks, and took swabs to test for numerous chemicals. Still, they came up empty. Now that all of the students are out of the hospital, school administrators say the next step is to speak one-on-one with them to see if there are any common denominators. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
I'm Jack Callahan, and this is Fox News.
For over 30 years, Sanford Technology Group has been helping companies throughout Guam and Micronesia with their payroll, time and attendance, networking, and other information technology services. Our online integrated payroll and time and attendance solution provides the workforce management tools and expertise to make your business more efficient and employee-friendly. For more information, visit Sanford Technology at 335 South Marine Corps Drive or call us at 647-0220 to schedule a demo today.
Sanford Technology Group.
Bring joy to your world and your budget with a holiday loan from First Hawaiian Bank. At a low 4.99% APR fixed for 1 year, it's a smart way to add ho 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 without budget uh-oh. To apply for a holiday loan, visit any First Hawaiian Bank branch or FHB.com. For more information, call 1-877-640-2337. Additional restrictions apply. First Hawaiian Bank. It all starts with yes. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the... Let me check that again here. Make sure I got it right. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, that's what the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says. And that's something we emphasize here every day on Tall Tales because we are constitutionalists here. We pay a lot of attention to the United States Constitution. And we want to make sure that everybody out there in our international radio listening audience understands that this is basically a Constitution-driven radio program, Constitution amongst other things, that is. And that's why we always start out here, or why I always start out here reading the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. I'm going to go from here to the PDN. Unfortunately, I didn't print out the PDN editorial today, so I'm very laboriously locating it online. So just give me a second here, and we'll be able to start out with Zemi Ikotny. You'll recall that the purpose of the Zemi Ikotny portion of the program is to compare and contrast the editorials of the two daily newspapers that we are feted with here on Guam and try to figure out which one is the more edgy, topical, hard-hitting, informational, however you want to put it, the one that we feel does us the most good if we happen to read it. And right now I'm having a little difficulty trying to read it because I can't get to it online. Strange thing, huh? Good things always happen in bunches, right? So bear with me for just a second here, and I'm sure I'll be able to figure out some way to get to the newspapers. Yeah, I'm going to start out with the Post because I like that one the better of the two. So if I'm going to have difficulty getting to an editorial, it's probably going to be the Daily News because I like the Post. I already kind of prejudge it. And here's the Post editorial. Extra Gov Guam holiday on biggest shopping day of the year. Excessive. When the government of Guam faces a funding shortfall, it looks to all the island's taxpayers to cover for it, whether it's through tax increases, fee increases, and sometimes shorter government hours and cutbacks in services. Just earlier this year, the governor's office made a big spectacle about closing certain fire stations and a police precinct, supposedly because the Gov Guam was facing a shortage of money. I just have a sneaking suspicion here that the editors of the Post must have been listening to Tall Tales yesterday. What do you think, Real Joe Cruz?
I believe so.
Yeah, does this sound kind of familiar to you?
I'm pretty sure they pay someone just to listen to this show.
Yeah. Well, if they do, it certainly would be money well spent, wouldn't it? Yeah, and actually, while I'm thinking about it, you don't have to pay to listen to this show, do you?
Oh, now I'm privileged.
You really are, yeah. Okay, going on. The public, and by the way, Real Joe Cruz, you seem to be kind of preoccupied back there. Are you doing anything other than pushing the buttons and laughing at my jokes at the appropriate time?
Well, I've got more to decrypt regarding who's going where when the new administration comes in.
Okay.
So, I mean, we revealed a few of them yesterday, and I'm trying to see if I can find more of them so we can get a basic understanding of who's going where.
So it's a good thing you left the Tall Tales political intel line open yesterday, because apparently there's more encrypted information coming in on it. Is that right?
Well, I'm always expecting more to come in until we get the complete list.
Okay. Well, I guess you think you'll have it ready after that big halftime show we have at 5 o'clock every day?
I didn't think I would have it ready yesterday, but I did.
You came through in the clutch, yeah.
Yeah, it's intestinal fortitude.
Yeah, very good, Real Joe. Okay, so everybody out there in our international radio listening audience, if you had an overpowering desire to call and pat the Real Joe Cruz on the, also known as Cruz the Decryptor, giving him a verbal pat on the back for his hard work back there in the control room. 888-8255 is the number, and we're also right here on Facebook Live. So if you aren't up to calling in, you can always go to our Facebook page and jot down your comments there, and more than likely, if I can, I will read them on the air and give you appropriate credit.
Don't forget, we're also on YouTube Live.
We are also on YouTube Live,
Bob Klitzkie's personal page.
Okay.
Just search for that.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Real Joe Cruz. All of this exposure, it's hard for even me to keep track of, you know. Okay, so going on with the editorial, the public swimming pool in Agadia and public parks were on the budget chopping block too, and a public relations campaign for tax increases. However, after the legislature agreed to approve various forms of taxes, Gov Guam has shifted from frugal to not so prudent spending. As an example, the day after Thanksgiving, which also happens to be Black Friday, the biggest shopping day of the year, Gov Guam workers will not be working because of a recently declared additional holiday. And those who are deemed essential workers, officials who will be called back to work on that day, will get holiday pay also. Department of Administration Director Edward Byrne said this coming Gov Guam holiday will cost something less than $150,000 in additional cost to the local government for the government departments and agencies within the executive branch. This does not include employees and supervisors at the Guam Power Authority, Guam Water Works Authority, AB Wanpat International Airport, and Guam Memorial Hospital, many of whom need to work even during Gov Guam holidays. I want to stop there just a second. And I have an item on the card called yeah, Calvo's middle finger versus the people of Guam, and we had that same item on the card yesterday. Well, it's still there, And then there's an addition to that, the slow burn. So in addition to giving us his middle finger, the governor is also burning us. And what I mean by burning us, can you feel the burn back there, Real Joe Cruz?
It's getting hot in here.
Yeah. Well, here's the burn. The director of administration, who has an extremely important role in government finance, Mr. Edward Byrne, says that it's only going to cost $150,000 extra to have that government holiday tomorrow. Now, if you look at the headline in the Post, in the Guam Post, it says Black Friday to cost line agencies $150,000. And the first sentence says the Black Friday holiday is estimated to cost government of Guam line agencies a little less than $150,000 in holiday pay, according to Department of Administration Director Edward Byrne. So I suspect that people are reading that and they're saying, "What in the heck? If that's the case, why all of the pounding on the table there on Tall Tales? Why is Bob making such a big deal out of government of Guam having this holiday off if it's only going to cost $150,000? Only $150,000. Well, rule number one on Tall Tales: if you ever use the word "only" in front of any money that the government expends, I will be very tempted to hang the phone up on you. Only $150,000 doesn't fit very well into my vocabulary. To me, $150,000 is a lot of money. But what Burns says here is not true, but it's extremely misleading. And it's misleading because when the line agencies of the government shuts down, that means that most people have the day off and they get paid for not working. So if a government employee gets paid for not doing his job, who bears the cost of the government of that holiday? It's you and me. It's the taxpayers of Guam. So in addition to paying for a whole day's worth of work that we didn't get, Mr. Byrne, we're also going to pay $150,000 just for line agencies, because there will be some people who have to come in and work anyhow. So they get double pay. What amounts to double pay? Then the article goes on to say that, or the editorial goes on to say that this doesn't count the Power Authority, Waterworks Authority. Now, to their credit, I haven't heard a peep out of Waterworks and Power Authority. It didn't take the judiciary long. You know, the ink was hardly dry on the governor's press release saying we're giving everybody Friday off, and the judiciary was right there. Yeah, we're going to give them the day off too. There's nothing wrong with us. We are an autonomous agency, except we're not autonomous if it's something that we don't want to do. Then we'll follow the governor's lead. Same thing with the legislature. 3 co-equal branches, 3 co-equal independent branches. But when the executive branch takes a day off, what does the legislature do? Oh, the legislature is going to be closed on Friday, Fortunately for us, the acting speaker, Therese Terlahi, didn't attempt to nauseate us with that one about hard-working legislature employees. Heading down the home stretch at the legislature, now that the elections are over, hard-working may not exactly be the word of the day over there. But so far, we haven't seen the knee-jerk reaction out of power and water. So I'll be commenting on that on Friday. If the Power Authority and Waterworks Authority don't succumb to this drug called a day off, a free day off with pay that the governor is pushing here, then the Power and Water Authority folks will be heroes as far as tall tales are concerned. And Real Joe Cruz, you might be working on a significant certificate that we could present to the members of the CCU if that occasion arises. If they go along with everybody else, then I don't want to hear anything about the autonomy of the Power Authority and the Water Authority. Same with the airport, same with the hospital. They haven't come out and said, oh, yeah, we're going to shut down, but I suspect that's what's going to happen. And then, of course, education had scheduled a makeup day for that day, but they're taking the day off too. So congratulations, Governor. You really did something good here. You put other agencies into the position where they can either be mission-oriented and work for the people and perhaps run and engage the chagrin of their employees who would all sit around and mumbling say, oh, the governor gave everybody a day off. Why do I have to come to work? So the burn, going back to that editorial here, that's what I call the governor giving us the burn, because Byrne's statement here and the news release in the Post is misleading. It's not going to cost us just $150,000 extra. There was a fiscal note that was attached to a bill for a new holiday that estimated the cost for closing the government for one day is $810,000. But that was about 4 years ago, so it's probably up higher than that now. Not to mention the lost commerce that takes place on Friday. There are some people, there are some businesses that have to do business with the government, and if the government's closed, they can't do business with the government. Certain permits and payments, and you know what if you wanted to go up to Rev Tax on Friday and pay your taxes? Oh, I'm sorry. We're closed because our employees are really hardworking. It's just not a very good way to run a railroad under any circumstances. And it's bad enough that the governor did it, but now we are also going to be burned by this misleading statement from the Director of Administration. Back to the editorial. So while private sector workers will be working, making the economy churn so that more taxes will be generated for the government of Guam to spend, GovGuam employees have been given an extra day off to shop. GovGuam workers get all kinds of perks, among them generally more generous retirement pay, leave benefits, and health insurance than many in the private sector. But ultimately, when GovGuam faces a cash shortage, our local government turns to us taxpayers for rescue. This tax and spend cycle will one day hit the brakes. Guam consumers' ability to pay more as a result of increased taxes and fees will one day no longer be elastic. Like anything else that keeps on stretching, it will break. When that breaking point is reached, island residents will curb spending, and GovGuam will find itself with less money to spend, and its inability to continue paying a generous payroll will be stretched beyond affordability too. For now, GovGuam workers can enjoy a holiday at the expense of everyone else, but it's only a matter of when that celebration might turn into a fiscal disaster. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I think I did say it myself. So all good points. And I also, yesterday when we were talking about this, I also touched on the fact that it recognizes we basically have two classes of people living here on our island. We have enough class warfare as it is, I suppose, and identity politics, but we have a situation where at least the governor now panders to government employees. at the expense of the 2/3 of the people that don't work for the government, who really are hard workers and pay and provide the taxes that pay for these free holidays. So it's just not a good situation. No matter from what viewpoint you view it, for the government employees to have the day after Thanksgiving off, and everybody else works and has to pay higher taxes. So I'm cruising around here trying to find the Daily News editorial for today. I think I found the Daily News editorial for tomorrow. Bear with me for just a second here. Well, I'll go with this one. Then we'll be one ahead tomorrow. This was published at 3:44 this afternoon, so it's undoubtedly tomorrow's headline. So it'll save me the trouble of going through it tomorrow. Watch for alcohol dangers during holiday seasons. As we head into the holiday season, alcohol will flow freely at barbecues, dinners, and formal parties. Family dramas and neighborhood grudges will be enhanced with beer, wine, and cocktails. For people who are inclined to abuse alcohol, the results may be tragic. Researchers have discovered a disturbing trend over the last decade that has been obscured by the stateside opioid epidemic. Alcohol, they've learned, kills more people each year than overdoses through cancer, liver cirrhosis, pancreatitis, suicide, among other things, etc. One alarming statistic, deaths among women rose 85%. Women once drank far less than men. And their more moderate drinking helped prevent heart disease, offsetting some of the harm, the newspaper reported. But with women drinking more, the dangers are becoming more apparent. So I guess this is one area where women have achieved equality with men. They're killing themselves as fast with alcohol now as men do. As the paper reported, people's risk of dying, of course, increases as they age. Now, that's a pretty... I'd never thought of that.
Wow.
Your risk of dying increases with age.
That's like saying people with the most birthdays live the longest.
That's a good point. Yeah, no wonder you're so good at decrypting those PIL messages, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, let me make sure I've got this one right now. As the paper reported, people's risk of dying, of course, increases as they age. Does that mean that I have a greater risk of dying now than I did 40 years ago, Real Joe Cruz?
I don't believe so, sir. I think you're going to outlive most young people.
Oh. Because if that's the case, then I think I'll go to court and petition to have my age changed. Like that Dutchman, you know, he wanted to change a court order changing his age from 69 to 49.
Because he identifies as a younger person.
Exactly. And if it works, he'll get an extra 20 years before he dies. Yeah. Okay, so if you didn't learn anything else today from Jemmy Ikotny, you did learn that your risk of dying increases as you age. Okay, I'm listening to Take 5 by Dave Brubeck. I'll give this one short shrift. Examine Facebook comments while I'm at it, and then we'll go to the card.
John Gibson, digging up history. California and Texas might never have been states of the Union, but for one vote by one man, which had far-reaching effects. How it happened? Right after this. Hey, check out JohnGibsonHealth.com for the best vitamins and mineral supplements you can buy. I know you're probably taking supplements. Studies show that more than half of all Americans are buying supplements to improve their health. So go with the best longevity vitamin and mineral supplements at JohnGibsonHealth.com. I take them every day. I just feel better, and I know you will too. That's JohnGibsonHealth.com for longevity supplements for 40 years, the best money can buy. JohnGibsonHealth.com. Back to my story. In 1842, farmhand Henry Shoemaker suddenly remembered he had promised a local candidate he would vote, and Shoemaker had forgotten to go. In a rush, he jumped on his horse, rode to town, and cast his vote. His candidate won by one vote. But it gets better. That candidate became a state legislator. In those days, state legislatures elected U.S. senators. Shoemaker's candidate cast his vote for Edward Hannigan, and Hannigan won by one vote. Hannigan went to the U.S. Senate, where the debate was over war with Mexico. Hannigan broke the deadlock, and the war was approved by one vote. Without the war with Mexico, California and Texas, the most populous U.S. states, would today still be states in Mexico. I'm John Gibson, digging up history.
What are the benefits of switching to the handset payment option with GTA? For starters, you can customize a plan that matches your budget and lowers your monthly payment. HPO lets you upgrade to the latest phones whenever you want. No more waiting for a contract to end to get that slimmer, faster smartphone. Because with HPO, there are no contracts. HPO lets you design a phone plan that suits you. So join the thousands who've already switched to HPO, the most customizable phone plan on island. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
All my life, I've heard that it's fine to go for what you want. Give it your all, but always have a backup plan, a plan B. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we talk about growing opinion, which says a plan B might not be such a good idea.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
Celebrate Thanksgiving brunch at Jeff's Pirates Cove, offering lunch buffet on Thanksgiving Day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Call now for reservations at 789-COVE. That's 789-2683.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, so here we are, and I had a chance to peek at my Facebook comments there during that break, and I'm going to ask Cruz the Decryptor. Very good.
Welcome back.
So let's see. Welcome back, Ismael Velez. Eleknya si Ismael Velez might be Guam. Denancy, how Ismael might be Guam. Brad is locked and loaded. Juanita is here. We've got, let's see. I've got John J. Tovis, who says that 888-8255 lines are open. John, the lines are open for everybody out there in our international radio listening audience. Give us a buzz. 888-TALK, 888-8255. Ted Lewis, somewhere from the 50 states. I can't remember exactly where Ted has relocated himself to, but I know he's interested in DEPCOR, having been a DEPCORite himself at one time. And then John J. Tovis again with his shades on. Sonny Cruz saying, all eyes open. And Ismael Velez, former First Lady Michelle Obama, once said, when they go low, we go high. Later that evening, she said to a select few, quote, when their stories fall short, we tell our tall tales. Yeah. All right, I always figured that lady was pretty sharp, you know. Michelle Obama, when their stories fall short, we tell our tall tales. I'm sorry, I got a little on. When their stories fall short, we tell our tales tall. Okay, so when you tell your tales tall, what you got is tall tales. And Brad Hewitt, obviously the government does not need these employees since they are not essential and must work in order to keep order. Yeah, well, if they're not essential, then why do we have them on the payroll if they're just kind of extra? Linda Gabriel says, hello. Rico Blancaflor, hello, Rico. Brad Hewitt, hard-working employees also get get picnic paid for by the taxpayers in September. Yep, Labor Day. Why give them more? And Ted Lewis, Bob, what do you think about the department, as you were of the appointment of Eric Palacios at DOC and what he thinks he can do in less than 30 days? Well, I'm looking at my card here, Ted, and I've got an item on the card, DEPCOR versus Palacios and Balthazar. And I should have said Palacios, Balthazar, and La Morena. So stick with it, Ted, and I'll be spending some time talking about DEPCOR and the was I going to say dumping? I mean assignment of Eric Palacios to DEPCOR. And let's see, who else have I got here? Linda Gabriel, hello. Eric, and from Jose Martinez, Eric Holder, when they go low, we kick them. That's what this new Democratic Party is about. You know, I'm going to get to that too when I get to the part of the card called Guam Grand Old Party, Republicans versus the Human Race, starring a report by Michael San Nicolas. Going on here a little bit, Jesse Limtiaco, what about the federal government knowing about the corruption at Guam Customs but let it go for 5 years before telling Gov Guam about their investigation? I guess you're talking about that Moser trial where there have been 2 mistrials, and the key figure in the trial is a former customs officer named Alvin Dia, who apparently was corrupt and, as we would say on Law and Order, was turned by the federal government to become one of their witnesses. Yeah. Didn't look very good, did it, Jesse? And then Jesse goes on to say, Gov Guam workers are taxpayers as well, 12,000 of them, no question about it. And Brad Hewitt, then how about they fund their own darn days off and not bother me or the rest of the private sector citizens? Brad is right out there. And Jesse Limtiaco comes back, Brad Hewitt, yes, but Gov Guam has the right to know. Crimes against the people of Guam are being committed for 5 years. You make a good point. And Brad Hewitt comes back, no such thing as a, quote, right to know it, right to know. Unsure where you came up with that nonsense. And another Brad here, this is Bradley Hokanson, who says, on board. Okay, glad you're on board there, Chief. Lee Stolley is here, Jesse Limtiaco, Brad Hewitt. Oh, really? The people don't have a right to know that crimes are being committed on taxpayers' dime? Jesse Limtiaco, government for the people, by the people. Well, except if you are on the U.S. colony of Guam. Oh, that's a... we get into that one. Jose Martinez, I already read yours, Jose. Brad Hewitt, after investigation and charges are filed, but not during. Ever heard of criminal enterprises being tipped off? Same concept. To keep the investigation from the local government. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Of course, we don't really have a right to know much of anything about the criminal justice process. Parts of it are public. The U.S. Constitution, the 5th and 14th, the 5th Amendment says that a criminal has a right to a speedy and public trial. So there's certainly that window into it. Grand jury proceedings are secret. Anybody who is a grand juror and publishes what he found out in the grand jury could find himself indicted. Certain aspects of police work are confidential by their very nature. To give the public a right to know everything the police are doing would make it much easier for criminals to do whatever it is that they're doing. Now, with this Alvendia and customs matter, we are limited to what we read in the newspaper, which is primarily taken from testimony in court, in the district court, as to Alvendia's relationship with the two defendants there, and the fact that he was a corrupt customs officer, and that he was kind of taken along for a while, apparently because he was useful. This is, I guess, where your Law and Order notebooks come in handy. It's difficult to condemn folks in law enforcement in criminal investigations. I can't remember who it was that said it, but a famous prosecutor was once upon a time heard to say, if I'm prosecuting the devil, then I'm going to have to go to hell to find my witnesses. And that is the dilemma that folks in the prosecution, law enforcement end of the link-up have to deal with. They have to deal with very unsavory characters to get the information that they need to proceed. Now, in that Moser trial, the defense theory is that Alvendia entrapped the defendants. Entrapment means that the defendants were not disposed to commit crimes, that they were encouraged into or lured into or tricked into or persuaded into committing crimes by someone in law enforcement. So that's what that all means. But it's not a very pretty picture no matter how you look at it. Okay, then I've got Jose Martinez. Representative San Nicolas wrote this statement on good Republicans in response to a viral video by Now This. That video pushed the agenda of identity politics. For them, diversity is only skin deep. In other words, superficial. Now, I haven't seen that video. I'd like to see it, Jose, if you could, maybe you could post a link. I've got Representative San Nicolas and his remarks about Republicans on the card. I will be getting to that a little bit later on. So much for my Facebook comments. Going back to Demi Ikotny, I'm not going to say anything more about the Daily News editorial. It kind of dwells on the obvious here, that alcohol is a very dangerous substance. People tend to use more of it than normal over the holidays, especially New Year's Eve. People that drink a lot don't like to go out on New Year's Eve because they call it amateur night. But they make a good point, and of course there were two nuggets in this Daily News editorial. One of them was that women have caught up with men when it comes to drinking, so they are killing themselves with alcohol at just about the same rate that men are, which I suppose, if one is interested in sexual equality, is noteworthy. And then the other takeaway was that a person's risk of dying increases as he ages. I would have never been able to, I wouldn't have been able to do the mathematical formula for that one, no matter what kind of computer software I had. I think you might have been able to do that one, Real Joe Cruz, well, with your skills as a decryptor. How are you coming with that decryption?
It's coming along. I should have something very soon.
Okay, so you got an update or something like
There
that?
may be an update and some possible change regarding what we spoke about yesterday and who was going where.
Okay, but we'll probably be able to do that right after the halftime show.
I
right?
believe so.
Yeah. Okay. Good show, Real Joe Cruz. Okay, so that does it for Jimmy Cotney. I've got my blue pen, but I didn't print out the editorials. So obviously, I don't think there's much suspense here. Obviously, the Post, yeah, the Post gets the blue star because. Very good, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, the Post gets the blue star because they were edgy, topical, hard-hitting, just like the host of Tall Tales was yesterday when he addressed the same subject, raising taxes and then giving everybody the day off. So from there, we then go to the card. The first item on my card was people versus the burn. And I've already, in the context of the Daily News editorial, I've already explained how the governor wasn't content with just giving us the finger. He also had to give us the burn. And it's good to see that Carl Nelson is here catching up with the Tall Tales Truth Posse. And then Jose says, with respect to that link I asked for, it's a long link. Well, yeah, I see it, Jose. It is a long link. So thanks for helping out. I may have time to take a peek at that over our big halftime show. But the next item on the card right now is the GOP versus the human race. GOP, of course, stands for Grand Old Party. And that's where we are. Guam's delegate-elect, and this is a story from today's Post, Guam's delegate-elect, Republicans he met in D.C. are, quote, decent human beings. Wow. That is shocking. Well, maybe he didn't meet, maybe the statistical sampling was too small.
Does he mean as opposed to people from here? I don't know.
Well, decent human beings, I mean, I suppose for some people it requires a certain amount of imagination to construct a sentence that uses Republican and decent human being in the same sentence. You have to separate it with a semicolon or colon or a dash or something like that because it would be grammatically incorrect to even consider the possibility that a Republican could be a decent human being. Yeah, and then there's a picture in the article, and of course, the picture shows Mike San Nicolas with guess who? The grandson of the late Bobby Kennedy. What's the guy's name? John Kennedy? Joe Kennedy III. Yeah. So although Mike San Nicolas has found that a Republican, that it's not an oxymoron talking about a decent human being Republican, you just wouldn't want to have your picture taken with one. That might come, you might live to regret that. San Nicolas also associated with a couple of other people, and I saw in the paper the other day that he's going to join the Hispanic caucus. So he's going to have to practice up on Hispanic, something like "Perdóname, es porque yo no entiendo español." Okay, so here it is. 10 more minutes till the big halftime show. This will give the Real Joe Cruz a chance to work on his decryption. Give me a chance to look at Jose's link, and we'll pick it up in a few minutes.
Knowing that we have choices in medical providers locally and outside of Guam is important and reassuring. This is the reason why Calvo Select Care provides quality health care options to its members. From a wide array of local, primary, and specialty doctors and clinics to a comprehensive hospital network on island and outside of Guam, you can trust Calvo Select Care to be there for you. Federal employees and annuitants enroll today. Call 477-9808 for more information.
Guam Regional Medical City. We bring the healthcare advances of the world directly to you. We are an acute care hospital that complements your needs with our robust outpatient specialty clinics. From preventative care to critical care, we strive for consistent excellence at GRMC. Our core philosophy is where patients are partners, which means we work as a team to make a healthier version of you. For more information about GRMC, visit us at grmc.gu.
Call the experts at Guam Hearing Doctors if you're worried about your hearing. The evaluation is simple and painless.
Okay, well, I'm watching it. I don't have the sound turned up, but let's see. There's a caption here. Just crunch the percentage. Let me go back and find that here. Just crunch the percentage of white men as a share of House Democrats is set to decline from 41% to 38% as a result of the 2018 election. Meanwhile, the percentage of white men as a share of the House Republican is on track to rise from 86 to 90%. Okay, I don't see Michael San Nicolas in here now, but maybe you can explain the point there, Jose. I'm just kind of taken by surprise by the headline here. It doesn't seem to relate to anything in the actual story here, but it is quite a headline. Delegate-elect, Republicans, Guam's delegate-elect, Republicans he's met in D.C. are decent human beings. Get in trouble for saying stuff like that. And we got some more Facebook here. Ismael Velez says he'll teach San Nicolas Spanish. So I wonder if the ability to speak Spanish is important, or is the ability to join an identity group that holds itself out as Latino is more important. And then Jose comes back and says, could people from Guam be considered Hispanic? Why or why not? How about Filipinos? Well, these are all good questions. And, you know, if you looked at the phone book, you know, probably you'd think you picked up the phone book from El Paso or Albuquerque by mistake, because there are so many Hispanic names in the phone book. But if you listened, you don't hear Spanish spoken anywhere on Guam. You hear some Chamorro spoken, but you won't hear any Spanish. But I suppose the important thing is that is the identification of the identity groups here. There's also something in the story that talks about San Nicolas spoke with Representative Judy May Chu, who invited Guam to continue serving on the Congressional Asia-Pacific American Caucus, which she chairs. Chu is the first Chinese-American woman elected to Congress. Okay. And then Jose comes back. He says he posted the video and made his comment about good response in response to it. Okay, so I get it. So the video made the point that the Democratic Party is only, what, 38% white. The Republican Party is like 88% white, and the numbers are increasing. So San Nicolas said, well, yeah, but I've met some Republicans, and they're decent human beings, which I suppose is really surprising given their demographics. You know, identity politics is really powerful. You know, it's very helpful if we're talking race prejudice. It's very important that a person belong to one of the identities that identity politics recognizes, because race prejudice means to be prejudice against someone because of his race. Prejudice means to prejudge a person. In other words, if you see a person who belongs to a particular race, you say, well, he belongs to that race, therefore he will do this, that, or the other thing, or he won't do this, or etc. So I guess San Nicolas is showing that he is not going to be prejudiced, because he's saying, I met some Republicans, and even though 90% of them are white, some of them are decent human beings. It's really kind of surprising. And Jose comes back and he says his extended comment, this new member orientation had nothing to do with partisanship and everything to do with getting organized to serve the people in the country. Why is the emphasis so geared towards differences? Yes, let us be proud of diversity, but let it not be a new cause. Let it not be a new cause for adversity. Nice phrase, Jose. Let's end the stretch to divide and start. Let's end the stretch to divide and start uniting this country from the shores of Guam to the coast of Maine. Very good. And then Jose says, kudos to Representative San Nicolas. Okay, well, it's a spirited set of posts there by Jose that helped us understand how to interpret this strange headline in the paper. Guam's delegate-elect, Republicans he's met in D.C. are, quote, decent human beings. And then we had a spirited exchange between Brad and who was it here? Jesse Limtiaco, showing you the power here of Facebook Live. So that's the second item on my calendar, right after the burn. And then I go on to the next item on my calendar, which I might be able to just start. DEPCOR versus Palacios, Baltazar, and La Morena. And then after that, I've got the Attorney General versus the Treasury, dealing with the continuing saga of Dave Davis. And then I've got Burns versus Aperon. This is a different Burns. This one won't burn you quite so bad. But starting out with DEPCOR versus Palacios, Eric Palacios, who hasn't exactly covered himself with glory recently, was the nominee for Customs. When he was appointed to Customs, a guy named Jim McDonald was moved to Corrections to be the Deputy Director of Corrections. Now, of course, we don't know why these maneuvers are made. We don't have any of the political intel line on why those things happen. But the actual line actually wasn't up and running back in those days like it is now. But if you didn't know better, you'd think, well, they moved McDonald out of Customs to make a space for Palacios. So Palacios moved into Customs, but he was not confirmed. I'll come back to this after the big halftime show we always have with the marching bands, the cheerleaders, the sword swallowers, etc. Real Joe, are you going to be decrypted by that time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right after that big halftime show, we're going to go back to the Tall Tales political intel line.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
4 dead in Chicago hospital shooting. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. A gunman arguing with his ex-fiancée shot and killed her, another hospital employee, and a police officer Monday at Chicago's Mercy Hospital. Police responding to reports of a man with a gun traded shots with the gunman, but not before he had killed Dr. Tamara O'Neill and pharmacy resident Dana Less. In the gun battle, Chicago police officer Samuel Jimenez was fatally wounded.
Officer Samuel Jimenez, who's just 28 years old. And we cannot thank him enough for his courage and bravery today.
That's an emotional Dr. Patrick Connor, the chief of the hospital's emergency department. The gunman's name has not been released yet, on purpose.
Superintendent Eddie Johnson, along with the mayor, wanting to focus on the heroic actions of numerous Chicago police officers who responded to that scene and went inside with an active gunman in the building who had already taken the life of an emergency room doctor in the parking lot. They want the focus to be on the heroism of Chicago police officers.
Larry Yellen of Fox 32 in Chicago, who says a long line of police cars has escorted Officer Jimenez's body to the morgue. One person is dead, 4 others hurt in a shooting on a street in downtown Denver.
I seen the shot, boom. Then he started firing some more. After that, I was already gone out the way. Sad, 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 especially, time of Thanksgiving coming up.
So far, police have no suspects and no idea of a motive. A manhunt is underway in and around St. Louis for a man who police say sexually assaulted one woman and fatally shot another inside a religious store on Monday. A federal judge in San Francisco has issued an order temporarily blocking the Trump administration from restricting asylum applications only to those who arrive in the country legally. The administration had issued those new rules earlier this month, designed to stop the migrant caravan trying to cross the southern border from filing asylum requests. This is Fox News.
We're surrounded by sound. There are sounds that you need to hear. There are sounds that you want to hear. And there are sounds that you long to hear. Hear it all, louder and clearer than ever before. If you or someone you know has a hard time hearing, Guam Hearing Doctors can help, using state-of-the-art test gear to evaluate your hearing and coming up with a plan to make your life better by making your hearing better. Call Guam Hearing Doctors for an appointment or visit them on the web at guamhearingdoctors.com.
The season of giving is here, and the stations of Choice Broadcasting want to give back. 93.3 The Point, Boss 104, Star 101, and Lux Guam present Charity of Choice. Each of our radio personalities have chosen a Guam charity that they would like to benefit.
And I chose Habitat for Humanity. Tune in daily to see how you can help.
Charity of Choice 2018 is brought to you by Choice Broadcasting Company, Lux Guam, American Water Tech, and the station that gives from the heart, 93.3 The Point.
2 more sets of human remains found Monday have brought the total number of those killed in the devastating Northern California wildfire to 79. In Florida, the extended vote counting has ended, and the state will certify the results of the midterm elections on Tuesday.
For the first time since the 1870s, Florida will have 2 U.S. senators that are both Republican. Florida's long and drawn-out election ended Sunday. 3-term Senator Democrat Bill Nelson conceded his hard-fought and down-to-the-wire loss to Republican Governor Rick Scott, who now heads to Washington. In the also close enough for a recount governor's race, Republican Ron DeSantis won and is already accepting job applications to work in his administration and setting up office space in Tallahassee. Tuesday morning in Tallahassee, the state's canvassing commission will officially certify all of the results. In Broward County, Phil Keating, Fox News.
The White House has restored the press pass revoked last week from CNN's Jim Acosta. After a federal judge's order, the White House also issuing a written set of rules of decorum for news conferences designed to limit multiple follow-up questions. The White House Correspondents Association making some changes of its own.
No more comedians. That's the word from the White House Correspondents Association as a result of last year's performance by Michelle Wolf. Many blasted the comedian's treatment of White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. Wolf responding via Twitter, writing, "The White House Correspondents Association are cowards. The media is complicit, and I couldn't be prouder." Biographer Ron Chernow would be the featured speaker at the annual dinner scheduled for April 27th. The role of the host is to typically roast the president and members of the media, but many critics said Wolf took it too far last year when she launched attacks on President Trump and members of his administration. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
I'm Jack Callahan, and this is Fox News.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Calvo Select Care continues providing great benefits for federal employees and annuitants, a wide choice of medical providers on and off island, an expanded local network of urgent and emergency care providers, free access to our gym partners. Save on your purchases with our Calvo's Lifestyle Club partners. With all these great benefits, enrolling with Calvo Select Care is that much easier. Federal employees and annuitants enroll today. Call 477-9808 for more information.
Gym membership and Calvo's Lifestyle Club are non-FEHB benefits.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Sanford Technology Group, STG, delivering service that can't be beat.
What a great show. You know, I just never get tired of watching that big halftime show, Real Joe Cruz.
Me neither.
And that barrage of cannon fire at the end is really, really inspiring. I suspect everybody out there in our radio listening audience, international radio listening audience, is wondering, did Real Joe Cruz do it? Did he decrypt it?
Yes, I did.
Well, let me make sure that our international radio listening audience is properly prepped here, just to make sure that all your friends and neighbors are going to be able to be right here in the front row as the scoop, a new batch of political scoop is dished out. Make sure you click on that box that are next to that arrow on the top of your Facebook page there where it says share, because you'd want all of your friends and neighbors to share in this important news, right? And then after the Real Joe spills the beans, so to speak, if you wanted to call in and make your comments, 888-8255. So, Real Joe Cruz, if you finished your decryption, let's start out by telling our international radio listening audience what it was that we were able to disclose yesterday.
Oh, so you want a recap of yesterday's
recap of yesterday's Tall Tales political intel line.
Okay, let's run through it. Yesterday, we went through it and found out that the airport, they would be putting Tom Atta at the airport authority. Was it Guam International Airport Authority?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the AB Wanpet.
Oh, it is, okay.
International Airport. as though we don't have enough trouble telling people where we are to start with. We have to have a 14-word name for our airport, right?
Yes. So apparently Tom Atta will be heading that agency.
And so that's Atta in for Atta, right?
Yes, it is. It's a swap of Attas.
So they're apparently what's going to happen, they're just going to chuck the Atta that's there now and replace him with Tom.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then looking forward to what was used to be called the commercial port. It's now called the Port Authority of Guam.
Well, I still call it a commercial port.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, I do. And I haven't recognized that the Dodgers moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles yet. Maybe next year.
Yes.
And basketball, I still like the Minneapolis Lakers. I'm kind of slow on these things, Real Joe Cruz. But go ahead.
It's going to be the Guam Port Authority with Rory Respicio.
Okay, all right.
A little R&R for the commercial port.
Okay, Rory Respicio, R&R. Very good, Real Joe Cruz.
And the possible chief of staff would be Tony Babalta, former Insular Affairs, right?
Former Assistant Secretary of Interior for Insular Affairs.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I stand corrected. So since yesterday, there's been a lot of chatter on the Tall Tales political intel line, and we also discovered yesterday that possibly Doreen Crisostomo would be heading the Department of Administration.
So yesterday, yeah, okay, go ahead.
But over the decryption that was handled today, it was discovered that may have been a mistake, and they may be putting Doreen Crisostomo at the Department of Revenue and Taxation.
Well, it's possible that it could have been a mistake. Highly unlikely,
yes,
given the fact that the political intel line is a function of Tall Tales.
Definitely.
Highly unlikely that it was a mistake. The much more likely hypothesis would be that someone up in the Lou Leon Guerrero hierarchy changed their mind.
I see.
His or her mind, their mind, right?
Yes.
But I know Ray Gibson has been very concerned about who's going to be the Director of Revenue and Taxation. So it could very well be Doreen Crisostomo. What do we know about Doreen Crisostomo again?
I honestly, I really don't know much about her.
Well, she's a professor at the university, and she ran for public auditor.
Oh, that's right. She lost to BJ.
She lost to BJ.
I think everybody could lose to BJ.
BJ was probably BJ probably should have run for president. As BJ came as close to being unbeatable. Even Madeline Berdallo, who I always tagged as being unbeatable, lost. But BJ ran away with that public auditor race.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think he's a good fit for that.
Okay, so we got one change then, Doreen Crisostomo at Rev Tax instead of DOA.
Correct. And there is something new on the Tall Tales political intel line. Chief of Police.
Chief of Police.
Yeah, they call him 01.
01, yeah, exactly. And they call the Director of Corrections 01 also.
Wow.
Yeah, so the new 01. Now, let's see if we could eliminate some possibilities. Is there a public figure who has stressed his strong law enforcement background over the last probably 20 years or the last 12 years since he's been in public life?
Ishizaki?
Well, that would be one. I was thinking of someone who has the first name as the guy that has a radio show in the morning.
Oh, Ray.
Yeah. Ray Tenorio.
Ray Tenorio.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be Ray Tenorio.
He probably is not going to be on the short list, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if he's lucky, the new chief will give him a gig as a firearms instructor.
Wow, that would be, that's a stretch, though.
Yeah.
So it appears that Frank Leon Guerrero may be the next chief of police, the 01, the top man at the public safety there at Guam Police Department.
Well, that's interesting because I think Frank right now is the United States Marshal.
Yeah, he was also the former Superior Court Marshal.
Yeah.
And I believe I think he put in 25, maybe more years at the Guam Police Department.
He was at the Guam Police Department. I know that for sure. I think he may have advanced to the rank of lieutenant in the Guam Police Department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a SWAT officer. He was also involved in training and development of new recruits as well.
Okay. Do you think the fact that his name is Leon Guerrero has anything to do with his becoming chief of police?
Could be.
I don't think so.
Nah.
Leon Guerrero is kind of like Smith, I mean, there are just so many of them. That,
yeah. Just like Joe Cruz's. There's a billion of them.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of Joe Cruzes, but there's only one real Joe Cruz, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the political intel line for today then. Frank Leon Guerrero, Chief of Police. Doreen Crisostomo, Rev Tax. Tony Babauta, Chief of Staff. Rory at the commercial port. Tom Atta at the airport.
Yeah, I think it's noteworthy to mention, though, that there are a few more agencies that will need leaders, and as we find them out, as we decrypt from the Tall Tales political intel line, we'll be letting Tall Tales listeners listen all over the world.
That's true. So, as is the custom of most of our international radio listening audience, you want to be listening to Tall Tales every day so that you get this important political intel first right here on Tall Tales. So let's leave the political intel line open, Real Joe Cruz. You're going to have to re-encrypt this information and put it back in the safe for overnight. But we'll leave the political intel line open. And now that we've developed some data here with our political intel line, I'm going to look around the closet at home and see if I can find my crystal ball. So the crystal ball is not as accurate as the political intel line, but it could be pretty interesting. I'll see if I can, maybe I'll bring that with me tomorrow, my crystal ball. Okay, so that's it for the political intel line for today. And back to DEPCOR versus Palacios, Baltazar, and La Morena. So I was explaining that it's possible that when Eric Palacios was given the customs job, Jim McDonald was moved out of customs and made the deputy director of corrections. But that's just speculation on my part. That's not from the political intel line. And then just a few days ago, Jim McDonald was summarily dismissed from the Department of Corrections, so he's no longer the Deputy Director of Corrections. So as we sit here on the 20th of November, we've got about, 43 days until the new administration is sworn in. And Governor Calvo has appointed Eric Palacios. Oh, and by the way, Eric Palacios was not confirmed as a director of customs. And the reason was because the oversight chair of the legislative committee that had the jurisdiction over Palacios's confirmation did not advance his confirmation forward. That was Talina Nelson. She held a hearing, may or may not have prepared a committee report. In any case, did not circulate the committee report to see if there were enough votes to either endorse Palacios or at least report his confirmation out to the whole floor. So the confirmation of Palacios was never voted upon. And this caused a certain amount of consternation on the part of the government. We went through another math exercise to figure out how long, I think it was 90 days, how long 90 days was. And the question was asked of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General's written opinion says, well, it's 90 days, not including weekdays. Remember that, Real Joe?
Yes, I do, sir.
Yeah, I think what she meant was 90 days, including not including weekends. But what she said was 90 days, not including weekdays, suggesting to me that she may have been the consultant that helped the Election Commission determine how to calculate 2% of the vote, if you remember that kerfuffle. Yeah. But in any case, Palacios wasn't confirmed. Now he winds up at the Department of Corrections. So we started out with Alberto Lamarena, better known as Tony Lamarena, as the Director of Corrections, who, in my mind, really distinguished himself when he appeared on television right after his appointment wearing the uniform of a corrections officer. And yes, and I describe that as Tony Lamarena's new costume. If you are...
I'm sorry, Bob. This reminds me of the time the governor wore his BDUs. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I guess, maybe that'll be the legacy of the Calvo administration, the costume administration, because, being a corrections officer is a darn hard job. It may very well be the hardest job in the government of Guam. Corrections, a police officer occasionally deals with criminals when he's on his shift, sometimes violent criminals when he's on his shift, and sometimes has to physically deal with violent criminals when he's on his shift. A corrections officer, every day that he goes to work and goes into that building, is dealing with criminals all the time. And some of them are really violent criminals who have committed heinous crimes. So being a corrections officer is a dangerous occupation. It's full of traps for the unwary, because the largest collection of, I'm going to use a word here and then I'll have to back off from it because of political correctness. The department, the prison operated by DEPCOR, is the largest collection of con men on the island, probably not only on the island, but in the entire Marianas Archipelago. Now, when I say con men, I'm not excluding women, because women can be engaged in confidence games just as men can. But the expression that has come down to us through the ages is con men. Look out for him. He's a con man. So inmates at the Department of Corrections have little else to do with their mental capacity than to sit around and think of ways to con corrections officers into doing something that might get the corrections officer in trouble. So it's not only a physically challenging job, it also has its mental dimensions to be able to understand what's going on and to be able to stand up against it. In order to be a corrections officer, you have to go through the Corrections Academy, and it's no piece of cake. It's not about social interaction. It's a tough academy. So people who wear the uniform of a corrections officer should take great pride in wearing that uniform, because if you see one, it wouldn't be a bad idea to tell him you really appreciate what he does when he's on the job. So to see the new Director of Corrections present himself in the uniform of a corrections officer when he hadn't been through the academy, to me was somewhat grating. And that's why I characterize what he was wearing as a costume. Now, I don't know if he wore it after that or not, but anyhow, the other thing that he did to distinguish himself was the Ovita Nauta fumble. There is an employee at the Department of Corrections right now named Ovita Nauta, who formerly worked for the police department, was indicted and prosecuted for stealing money from the police department and then attempting to pay it back with a bad check. Now, between the time that she did that
and the indictment, she somehow managed to move from the police department to corrections. But when she was indicted, she was an employee at the Department of Corrections. Want to know what the director of corrections did when he found out that he had someone in his employ who had been indicted for a felony? Want to know what he did? Are you ready for this? Nothing. He did nothing. And he could have, based on nothing other than what was in the indictment, which is a public document, he could have sought the dismissal of that employee, but he did nothing. A couple of years went by, and that employee, Ovita Nauta, finally pled guilty to some misdemeanors and admitted that what she had done was in the papers. It was all over. What did the director of corrections do this time around? You want to take a guess, real Joe Cruz?
He put her on a pedestal?
He did indeed. He said, no, she's already been punished by the court. She's an outstanding employee. She is really good at her job. So we're not going to do anything to her at all. Again, he could have fired her at that time, but he chose not to. So I'm kind of... Yeah, Ken Leanne Guerrero, didn't she get the Employee of the Year award? She got some kind of a MAG Pro award. Yeah, probably has something to do with her ability to deal with finance, I suppose, huh? Yeah, so, you know, that's the leader of the Department of Corrections. Now, when he left, and the person that was shuffled in to be the deputy director was removed, and Kate Baltazar was moved back to corrections from KGTF back to corrections. Kate Baltazar had been the deputy director of corrections, and she distinguished herself too. She looked, she had her costume also, and appeared with La Morena in that same costume play when they were on camera in their costumes. Then she ran for senator and got a fair amount of earned media there that showed her posting her campaign stuff around the Department of Corrections. But as it turned out, she couldn't run, because although she had been moved to the Guam Telecommunications Commission in time to be a nester. Now, you'll recall from the whole David Cruz incident that there are some people who have government executive branch jobs who can continue to work for the government at the same time that they're running for senator. I don't want to hear the word unclassified employee out there, because that's not the touchstone. That's not how the division is made. There is a list of people who can do both, who can keep their government jobs and can run for senator. One of those categories is to be the director of an agency that is confirmed, who is confirmed by the legislature. Well, if Kate had been moved to the Telecommunications Commission in time to have been confirmed before the deadline for turning her papers in, then she could have kept working and she could have run for senator. But she didn't get confirmed on time. And I think probably an equal protection violation there, right? It just isn't fair, that they took the trouble to move her from corrections to telecommunications, and she couldn't get confirmed in time to run for senator. And if she had, maybe she'd have been elected, because so many women were elected this time. This is all the logic of government of Guam politics here that I'm exploring. So that didn't work out for Kate. She went to Telecommunications Commission. I'll come back to this item on the card here. DepCorp versus Palacio, Baltazar, and La Morena. I hope you're still listening, Ted. I appreciate your comments when I finish this one.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
So today I went into iConnect to sign up for their 12-month $19.99 mobile plan. I decided to switch from my old carrier to start saving money for Christmas. And guess what? I won an instant prize just for signing up. And they automatically entered me in their Connect and Win drawing for awesome prizes, including a vacation for 2 to Manila, all for signing up. Go to iConnectGuam.com for details or call 888-8888 to learn how you can connect and win with iConnect.
Conditions apply. Life is too short to be isolated from the people you love. Hearing loss is the invisible disability. The experts at Guam Hearing Doctors have solutions.
Zahago, as you were Zahago Zakatik, Zahago na Afa Malagomo. So that's the question from Jack Hattick. So that was the seventh inning stretch, straight to you from the center field bleachers at Wrigley Field. And out there, our remote microphone picked up a couple of folks talking about the poet laureate of baseball, a certain Yogi Berra. And in this era of cyber crime, Yogi Berra had some timeless advice that I'm going to pass on right now. Yogi Berra said, "Never answer an anonymous letter." Words to live by. Okay, and then let's see, I got a really long post here from John Paul Manuel, I think, who was Mike's chief of staff, if I'm not mistaken. And John Paul Manuel says, "Comunisto hamzu para mina shate na stretch." No, let's see, that's Jack. Yeah. Hongan na listo zo. Lo manhajan na stretch. And John Paul Manuel, it should be noted that Chamorro historically have been in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, including Congressman Ben Blas, Congressman Robert Underwood, current CNMI delegate Gregorio Kilili Sablan is also a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Okay, that's interesting information. And then Jack, who was wondering if I was listo or a seventh inning stretch, says, "Hafa kumeki eleknia stretch gifinu tomorrow." Se kwatyo tungo na Jackie. Duro na palabra stretch gifinu tomorrow. To John gin on tongo pot favor na tugi papa gi Facebook page. Sejos masilay. And Albert Eliasson is here. Semper Fi, Albert. And I didn't get around to saying hello to let's see, I got a new guy here that I hadn't seen before. Well, I'll find it later on. And Shelley Gibson, welcome aboard. Yeah, here it is. Dawood Masi. Hello, Dawood. Glad to have you on board. So, so much for the Hispanic caucus and the seventh inning stretch. And we're back to Depcor versus Palacios, Baltazar, and La Morena. So, Kate Baltazar, who's hopes to run for senator and keep her government job were quashed by an inactive legislature, then gets sent back to the Department of Corrections as the acting director when Tony La Morena is off island somewhere, even though there was a deputy director on board named Jim McDonald. Now, ordinarily, when the director is absent, the deputy director ratchets up into that position. And if you want an example, that would be Lester Carlson, who the Election Commission now says has to file some financial disclosure papers because he was the acting director of BBMR. But that's the way it usually works, but not this time. I guess Kate Baltazar was so valuable, they brought her back from Telecommunications Corporation to be the acting director, and then to help her, they've put Eric Palacios in as a deputy director, and he'll probably be there for maybe another, 42 days until the changing of the guard occurs when the new administration comes in. So, again, is this a good use of my money? Who's going to pay for this? When you put somebody on who's going to be around for such a short period of time, who is a stranger to the agency, is that a good use of anybody's money? Especially someone who apparently, at least in the public perception, is damaged goods to start with. I don't think so. So,
Bob, did you see this story about Palacios' Facebook post draws fire? Governor asked to reconsider his appointment.
Where is that story?
Guam Daily Post.
No, I haven't seen it.
Well, it says here, a day after being appointed acting deputy director of Department of Corrections, Eric Palacios stepped into another controversy with a comment on his Facebook page directed at Senator Talina Nelson, who chairs the Legislative Public Safety Committee. Aya de tatlu si Talina, duru tatlu zani, sound bites, wrote Palacios on his Facebook page. Molekna un taitai goes e militat to avoid getting reprimanded again. The rough translation from Chamorro is, oh boy, Talina, stop running your mouth off and read your military general orders to avoid getting reprimanded again.
So he's apparently still covering himself with glory, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it goes on and on, but I don't want to read. This is a very long article. It's on Guam Daily Post.
Yeah, well, read a little bit more here so we can get kind of the flavor of it.
Wait. Palacios went on to write, as for your recent promotion, seems suspect, and it makes me wonder whether what you told me in our meeting at Franny's is how you got it. Women in the military have to expletive upwards to move upwards. Shame on you for thinking so low of our women in uniform, ready to take a polygraph whenever you are, Palacios stated. Acting Speaker Therese Terlahi called on the governor to reconsider Palacios' appointment based on what she described as a gender-based attack on Nelson.
Wow. That's in late breaking. That wasn't in this morning's post.
No, it just came out. According to this, it just posted 3 hours ago, but I just saw it. I'm often checking the Daily Post to see if there's anything new. So.
Yeah, good for you, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, well, that's a nice addition to this item on the card, isn't it? Is this appointment really necessary, Governor? Yeah. So, deputy directors, of course, don't go through the confirmation process, and come January, there will not be any more deputy directors because the current budget law abolishes the position of deputy director. Whether one thought that that was a wise policy initiative or not, that question is perhaps answered by what you just read, Real Joe Cruz. Maybe if that's what deputy directors do, maybe we really don't need deputy directors. Okay, so much for that item on the card. I guess there's one more thing I wanted to say, and that is that if you are one of these corrections officers that has been through the Corrections Academy and have an extremely difficult job and you're bearing up under it, do you take a certain pride in your leadership? Are you glad that the leadership of the Department of Corrections is what I have just described? Is it good for morale? Or would we expect a governor to put someone in charge of corrections who his corrections officers could respect? And I haven't seen that for the reasons that I just mentioned. Starting out by wearing a costume that looks like a corrections officer's uniform is not a very good way to start. Let's see, I got some Facebook comments here. The next item on my card is the AG versus the Treasury, and it deals with the Dave Davis case. Jose Martinez, federal policy designates Hispanic as an ethnic identifier, not a racial identifier. Be that as it may, I think there is room for discussion if Guam CNMI ought to be represented by such a caucus. Yeah, good point. Is Guam CNMI being represented by the caucus or represented in the caucus? I don't know. It just, something about it just seems a little bit strange to me. I suppose the reason I feel that way is because there's no German caucus at the House of Representatives. There probably should be, right? A German caucus. And, there should really be an Italian caucus, right, Mr. Scamboluri?
I would join just for the food.
Just for the Italian caucus.
They
right?
get together. Maybe Mike wants to get together with them because the Mexican food is great.
I agree with you on that 100%. Well, be that as it may, Jose San Nicolas is in the Hispanic caucus, apparently. Jose also says there might be a supermajority in our government, but the drama has not gone away. Yay. Let's see if there's anything else I missed here. I guess not. Okay, so the next item here is the Attorney General versus the Treasury. And I'm picking this up from a 19 November article in the Post entitled Cost of Defending Plebiscite Law Unclear. I'm afraid it's too clear. The government of Guam reported it spent $184,914 in legal fees and travel expenses over the past 7 years defending the non-binding political status plebiscite law and the lawsuit filed by retired Air Force Colonel Arnold Davis on November 22, 2011. In response to a Freedom of Information Act request by the Post for cost to date, the Office of Attorney General listed only the legal fees paid to a private law firm since November 2015 and 2 airline tickets and per diem costs for attendance at an October appeal in Honolulu. The transaction record provided by Deputy Attorney General Carl Espaldon shows $175,700 in legal fees paid to the Blue Ocean law firm of Julian Uggan. Uggan was brought on as a Special Assistant Attorney General in 2014 ahead of the first appeal of the Davis case to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which resulted in a remand to the District Court of Guam. In March 2017, Chief Judge Francis Gatewood of the District Court of Guam decided in favor of Davis, ruling The plebiscite statute impermissibly imposes race-based restrictions on voting rights of non-native inhabitants of Guam in violation of the 15th Amendment. In fiscal year 2016, Uggan's firm was paid $76,000. In fiscal 2017, $47,100 in legal fees. So far this year, the cost has been $52,000 for Uggan services. The response from Espaldon did not show any record of legal costs paid to Uggan before November 2015. Now, the article says he was brought on as a Special Assistant Attorney General in 2014. The fact that he was sworn in as a Special Assistant Attorney General doesn't necessarily mean that he did any work. And I'm just speculating here, but perhaps there weren't any expenses before 2015, is that all of the work that needed to be done was done in the Attorney General's office and not by Uggan. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a mistake. But in any case, the only additional expense listed, let's see, by Espaldon is $40,708 for travel-related costs for the Attorney General to attend the appeal of the Davis decision before the Ninth Circuit on October 10 in Honolulu, plus $4,506 cost for Deputy Attorney Kenneth Orcutt to attend the same hearing. And that's the one that the Attorney General went to flying business class. So I don't know if that money is included here or not. Be interested if the Post followed up on that. But in any case, it looks like $184,914 spent on Julian Uggan, who, by the way, is the legislative counsel for the 34th Guam legislature. So about $185,000 for that, which is a fair amount of money when you consider that we actually lost. When the Ninth Circuit ruled against us the first time around, in my estimation of of the case, it can't be won. But we're continuing to spend money on it. And not only do we have to pony up the money for the Blue Ocean Law Firm and Julian Uggan, since this is a civil rights case, the fees of the attorney's fees of the plaintiff have also we'll also have to pay those. The last paragraph of the story says, still pending in district court is the $929,332 that Davis sought from Gov Guam in April 2017 for the legal fees associated with his lawsuit up to that time, and the additional fees Davis attorneys incurred after Gov Guam filed an appeal with the Ninth Circuit following the district court's decision to strike down the plebiscite law. So let's see, 9 and 180. So we're talking about pretty close to $1.2 million for this, for this so-called plebiscite suit, which is not going to have a happy ending for the people of Guam, because we're going to wind up spending an awful lot of money on something that we shouldn't be spending any money on at all. Now, I've talked about this before, the whole idea of the Chamorro self-determination, which is kind of a misnomer. We have our Commission on Decolonization, which is really the Commission on Chamorro Independence, because that's about the only thing that ever comes out of that commission. And we have been deluded into thinking that we could have this non-binding vote to determine the desires of Chamorros as to a political status. I've got about 10 minutes here after the home stretch. I think I can wrap that up for today and tell you what I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. So Short break and then the home stretch.
Attention federal employees and annuitants. Open enrollment begins on November 12th through December 10th for federal employees' health insurance plans, with rates 19% lower than last year for Take Care's non-postal high option and access to PICA's Best Clinic FHP Health Center. Take Care's supplemental wellness package provides cash incentives and allows members access to 19 fitness partners, including the largest fully functioning fitness center in Hagåtña and Dededo. To learn more, call Take Care at 646-6956. Take Care. Our island, your health plan.
Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959. Now you can start planning for the holidays by getting a personal Christmas loan from $1,000 up to $3,500. Family Finance has 3 convenient locations to serve you. Give them a call in Dededo, 633-4473, Hagåtña, 475-4545, and the Upper Tumon location on the 2nd floor of the Pacific Building at 647-5626. Get your Christmas loans today from Family Finance.
Celebrate Thanksgiving brunch at Jeff's Pirates Cove, offering lunch buffet on Thanksgiving Day from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Call now for reservations at 789-COVE. That's 789-2683.
Here we are heading down the home stretch on Tall Tales. Another perfect day is almost drawn to a close. I've got about 10 minutes until I begin to enjoy that song that I like so much, Bolero. And I'm going to wrap up here talking about the AG versus the Treasury. And I think what the Attorney General is doing is chasing good money with bad. We're spending good money sending good money after bad. I don't see that the Attorney General can win the Davis case. I think that the decision to go forward after the government of Guam lost at the Ninth Circuit was not a good decision, governed more perhaps by pride than by sound legal judgment. And chasing a rabbit down a rabbit hole that, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know that we need to do it. I've mentioned that we have a so-called Commission on Decolonization, which is really the Commission on Chamorro Independence, because that seems to be the only thing that comes out of that commission, funding trips to the Fourth Committee at the United Nations and a lot of rhetoric favoring the independence of the island of Guam. If we're really talking decolonization, every one of us who calls himself a resident of Guam is living in a colony, and the decolonization would affect all of us. It doesn't just affect those who call themselves Chamorros. Now, the way the so-called plebiscite is structured elicits information, and what it amounts to is a highly structured public opinion poll that would ask those who hold themselves out as Chamorro, would you like to see Guam in free association with the United States, which is an impossibility? Would you like to see Guam be a sovereign and independent country from the United States, or would you like to see Guam be a state? And we've been hoodwinked into thinking that these are the only 3 options that are available to the island of Guam, the territory of Guam, the people of Guam, however you want to identify the players here. Now, I think that's a really interesting question, and it's a question that I would like to know the answer of. I think the question is not properly formed. I would like to see a question like the question that was posed in New Caledonia. Just one question. Would you like to see Guam become a sovereign and an independent country? Yes or no? And I wouldn't care who voted on it. But that's, if we can't answer that question, the rest of what we're doing here is just an exercise in the gathering of earned media. But in any case, what we're doing right now with this plebiscite, I would be interested to know how Chamorros feel about those 3 questions. But I'm not so sure that I ought to have to pay for it. I'm a taxpayer here, and I would expect, as a taxpayer, even if I didn't pay any taxes, I would expect that government services would be available to me pretty much on the same basis that they're available to everybody else. And I don't see that holding this special interest, what amounts to public opinion poll, is in the interest of everybody else. I will recognize there's perhaps a good faith argument on the other side. So I don't advocate that position very strongly. But what I do say is this, that if there is a move for independence, I think it's kind of strange that those who would want Guam to become an independent government country are actually working for the colonizer. Now, that's one of the buzzwords here in this discussion, colonizer and settler. A couple of new pejoratives. We can't use the N-word anymore. That's forbidden, but there are still some pejoratives that can be used, like colonizer and settler, in reference to people who live here who are not Chamorro. So the point that I'm making here is that we're spending $1.2 million here. You know, with $1.2 million, we can give everybody a day off without pay. At least somebody would feel good about it. So we're online to spend $1.2 million for something that's not going to go anywhere, which even if it did, as far as I'm concerned, would not be a remedy for what anybody considers to be the problems that we face here. Now, if there is a strong movement for independence or for no independence or for statehood, then a way to go about doing it would be to petition the United States Congress and say, hey, you guys, why don't you hold a referendum on Guam? Or why don't you authorize that referendum? And these are the questions that should be asked. But as it is, and this has been a constant source of discussion on Tall Tales, this idea of trying to solve a political question by going to the courts doesn't work. You don't solve political questions by going to the courts. In a democratic country or in a republic, you solve democratic questions by going to the democratic organs of that country. In the United States, it happens to be the Congress. So if there's really a strong feeling about holding these kinds of votes, then the first step would be to petition Congress to hold a vote. Better yet, as far as I'm concerned, is if there's a group of people that really think Guam should be independent, then perhaps they should petition Congress, because it seems strange that people who have taken an oath to comply with the Constitution and laws of the United States are in the forefront of saying Guam should be independent from the United States. It's not inconsistent, but it strikes me as rather odd. But what I really want to concentrate on here is who's paying for all of this stuff? Who's paying for the Davis case? And the answer, of course, is the same group that has to pay for everything else. The taxpayers. We're all paying for this. And the longer it drags on, the more it's going to cost us. So that's why this item is on the card, only barely touching on the merits, but touching heavily on the costs. So tomorrow, probably going to be visiting the poet laureate of the game of baseball again, a certain guy named Yogi Berra. I don't know if we'll have anything coming in on the Tall Tales political intel line or not. If we do, the real Joe Cruz, also known as Cruz the Decryptor, will decrypt it, and we'll get into that. And I've got a card for tomorrow, left over from today. Burns versus Aperon, Terlahi versus the Government Accounting Office, Pelicani versus Monia, and we'll see what else comes up between now and 4 o'clock tomorrow when I will see you again. Thank you very much.